Superheroes and animation have gone hand in hand dating all the way back to the beginning in the 1940s. As time has progressed over the last 20 years or so, direct-to-video animated specials have become a relatively normal thing. Marvel, DC, and even Dark Horse have all thrown their hats in the ring regarding this medium. One of my favorites out of all these, though, has to be Hulk vs., specifically the Hulk vs. Wolverine portion of it. Released in 2009 as part of Marvel's now defunct direct-to-video animated movie line, Hulk vs. was a double feature where Hulk went against Wolverine in one portion and Thor in another portion. For starters, one of my favorite parts of this movie is the animation. It's just simply amazing. The studio that worked on this is Madhouse, who are no stranger to the channel. Check out the Gotham Knight video for more on that. As you would expect from Madhouse, the animation is of a very high quality. It's smooth and feels natural, the action is very well paced and has lots of punch to it with certain characters. You can feel the weight behind them with characters like the Hulk, or even characters like Omega Red. The art style used in this is very similar to Earth's Mightiest Heroes or Wolverine and the X-Men. I really would like if there could be just another X-Men related cartoon that looks similar to this at least. The color palette is also very fitting for this. There's a good variety of grays, blues, and greens used throughout this, both on interior scenes and exterior scenes, although there aren't as many of those. Even the shade of green that Hulk himself is a bit more muted in this compared to what it is in the Hulk vs. Thor portion of the feature. For fans of the source material, there are plenty of Easter eggs and nods to characters and covers and other things like that throughout the film. The best part of it, though, is if you aren't familiar with these things, it doesn't impede on the story at all. You can watch this without knowing anything about that stuff and still enjoy it as much as somebody who does. It's just a nice fun thing thrown in there for the fans. Some examples I can think of off the top of my head are there's a reference to a cover from Daniel Way's run. There's a direct nod straight to X-23's existence, since I'll get to that later. Her creators worked on this. And we also get a nice nod to the X-Force costumes with a couple characters. It's a bite-sized story, clocking in at around 37 minutes in total. Though it may be heavy on the action, it does tell a complete story and has good character moments for everybody involved. The story was written by Christopher Yost and Craig Kyle. They're probably best known to most for being the driving forces behind Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes and Wolverine and the X-Men, which they've later gone on to confirm that this does take place in the same continuity as Wolverine and the X-Men. They also have writing credits on things such as Iron Man Armored Adventures, X-Men Evolution, and Thor Ragnarok, to name a few more. In addition to all that, they are also comic book writers. They both share runs on New X-Men and X-Force. Yost also had runs on Scarlet Spider and Red Robin as a solo writer. This is arguably more of a Wolverine story, where Hulk is just a force of nature that helps progress the plot as it goes on. Speaking of the plot, it's pretty straightforward and basic, but it works for what is being presented here. We're initially shown the two titular characters fighting, and then we go back to how this all started. Department K is sending in Wolverine to neutralize the Hulk, who has made his way into Canada. After some searching, the two find each other and begin to duke it out, but they wear each other down enough for Weapon X to capture them and take them back to their mysterious headquarters.
Oh, good buddy. It's me, Deadpool. I shot you.
We're given a brief recap of Wolverine's origin and then cutting to the present where he makes his escape only to be recaptured. The Weapon X, or Weapons Plus, whatever you want to call them, villains decide to go against the Professor's wishes and try to kill Wolverine themselves. As a desperation move, Wolverine frees Banner as a means to even the odds with Hulk on his side. Of course, doing so has its consequences, since Hulk is definitely a wild card to say the least, and this iteration of Bruce can't transform on a dime, so there is plenty of suspense building up to when we actually get to see the Hulk in this fight. The remainder of the movie is mostly action scenes with a few pauses here and there. It's played pretty straight for the most part, but Deadpool and even the Hulk at times add some levity to it. And taking a page out of the MCU's book, there is even a brief post-credits scene. Listing off the main crew of villains in this, we have the Nameless Professor, who I assume is the same professor from the Weapon X storyline who doesn't have a name. As for the muscle for Weapon X, we have Deadpool, Sabretooth, Lady Deathstrike, and Omega Red. None of them are extremely fleshed out or deep by any means, but they're all fun antagonists. If you aren't familiar with them, this works as a very good sampler for what they are like. If you are familiar with the characters though, I think this does a good job at representing them all. Everyone's skills and abilities are highlighted, plus we get some insight to what their character is like for the most part at least. Lady Deathstrike has her sadistic personality, along with her claws, cybernetics, and Japanese heritage. There's also some vague allusions to her father and the history between her and Wolverine. Sabretooth's history with Wolverine is obviously going to be referenced in this, and he works very well as an inverse to Wolverine for the villains. Deadpool's abilities are put on display, and of course his personality shines by adding some fun moments to this. Thankfully, the comedy he gives isn't the dumb meme type stuff that he would be into a few years after this in the comics. Omega Red has his killer instinct and of course his tendrils, but I will say of the bunch, he's probably the one with the least representation here as far as personality goes. The voice cast is wonderful. The two leads, Hulk and Wolverine, are voiced by Fred Tatasciore and Steve Blum, reprising their iconic roles. Fred has voiced Hulk in numerous things ranging from Agents of Smash, Ultimate Destruction, the Ultimate Alliance of video games, the Earth's Mightiest Heroes cartoon, the Ultimate Avengers animated movies, and much, much more. Steve, of course, has probably voiced Wolverine in almost as many things as Fred has voiced Hulk in. Some of Steve's credits include Wolverine in the X-Men, the Marvel Ultimate Alliance games, and the X-Men anime, just to name a few. As for the villains, some of their voice actors that you might recognize are Nolan North as Deadpool. North has gone on to reprise this role in many things, mostly video games, after this. He was going to voice Deadpool in Wolverine and the X-Men if that were to get a Season 2, but unfortunately we all know that did not happen. Despite only being in about 15% of the movie's runtime, I'd say North's performance is arguably the most standout. I also remember this appearance being really appreciated considering at the time of this movie's release, X-Men Origins was coming to theaters, and we all know how that depiction of Deadpool was. Omega Red's voice actor Colin Murdoch is probably most recognized for his roles in the late 90s to early 2000s Transformers cartoons, starting from Beast Wars and moving into the Unicron trilogy. And Tom Kane voices the Nameless Professor. Kane has been in many, many cartoons. There's a good chance you know him from something at least. He was Utonium in Powerpuff Girls. He was Quincy Sharp in the Arkham video games. He's been Magneto in various video games. He's Yularen from Clone Wars and from Rebels. He's also been Yoda's voice in various video games and TV shows dating back to the early 2000s. You may even remember him from some commercials depending on how old you are.
Introducing a new bathroom cleaner that works overtime.
As you'd expect from veteran voice actors like these, they all give great performances, and in the case of Blum, North, and Tatasciore, I think they're pretty synonymous with these characters that they voice here. Hulk vs. Wolverine is a great film you can watch as you would any episode of a TV show considering its length. If you're a fan of these characters or if you want to get into these characters, I highly recommend it regardless if you haven't seen it. So I want to thank you for watching or listening to this video, however you may have consumed it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment, all that fun algorithm boosting stuff. I greatly appreciate it. If you'd like me to check out something, or if you want me to talk about a specific subject, feel free to comment and let me know. I'll catch you guys next time.
Weapon X is indeed pleased to have you back, Logan. We put considerable time and money into you.
And pointy things.